Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moments. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of upcoming episode of Tales of Herding Gods based on novel. So let's start. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor seemed to be smiling yet not smiling. Sacred Cult Master sure isn't humble. Qin Mu was slightly bewildered. He was clearly humble, but he was realistic as well, admitting he was number 2 and not number 1. He never bragged, so how could this not be humble? Assistant Minister Shan Yushin is the Heavenly Works Hall Master of Heavenly Devil Cult, and his treasure-forging methods were top-notch in the world. Even if other sects had capable people who were proficient in forging treasures, they couldn't match Shan Yushin. Yet Shan Yushin was inferior to Qin Mu, so since Qin Mu felt that he was still inferior to Mute, admitting himself to be number 2 was being humble and telling the truth. Old Ma had taught him not to be arrogant or hot-tempered, not be servile or overbearing, so he was just following these requirements. It's just that to others, being the world's second best in heavenly works at such a young age was simply too shocking. Besides, when such a youth admitted that he was the number 2 divine physician as well, it was simply too shocking. Qin Mu pondered the situation for a moment, then wrote down a list of materials before handing it over to Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. These were the rough estimations for materials needed to create such a battery. If it wasn't enough, he could always ask for more. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor picked the list and took a moment to look through it before asking, Sacred Cult Master wants to empty the Empire's treasury. Why does Imperial Preceptor say so? He asked in bewilderment. The black gold and black copper on your list are fine. Even if you use up more than several mines worth, they can still be provided. However, where do you want me to find divine gold and other divine materials? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor flicked the list away, revealed a very sincere look. Is Cult Master coveting the treasures in the Empire's treasury? If that's the case, there's a place for Cult Master at the entrance of the marketplace. Imperial Preceptor, what you want to make is a thing to slaughter gods, something that's greater than a cult legacy treasure that can kill a few cult masters. Also, if you hadn't said it, I would have forgotten, salaries will have to be paid since the cult followers of our Heavenly Saint cult will be helping out with the forging of the treasure. Qin Mu pondered over it, then wrote down the salaries as well as how many manufacturing factories he would need. Some of the names of the first-ranking high officials in the Imperial Court were also listed by him. To forge such a divine cannon, I will also require all the divine arts practitioners that are great in algebra. It'd be best to invite the experts of Dao sect. Qin Mu wrote down Dao sect on the list and said, every component of this divine cannon requires extreme precision, so there will be a lot of calculations to be done. With just the scholars of Imperial College, I'm afraid it will take us several hundred years to finish calculating everything, and there may even be errors. The experts of Dao sect are strong in this field, so we definitely need them. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's face changed slightly as he felt the list in his hands becoming heavier. Even with the power of the entire empire, he reckoned they would only be able to forge one sunshot divine cannon. The hardest part in all of this was going to be inviting the experts of Dao sect. Old Dao Master had once attempted to assassinate Emperor Yangfeng and almost succeeded. They even assisted the previous crown prince in the rebellion and almost crowned him the new emperor. After the rebellion was quelled, Emperor Yangfeng and Crown Prince Ling Yushu had ruthlessly beaten down on Dao sect, so the two sides weren't on friendly terms. They were like fire and water. To ask the experts of Dao sect to help was going to be very difficult. However, this kind of divine cannon had to be forged. Otherwise, when the next disaster struck, there would be no way for them to defend against it. With Imperial Preceptor yet to recover to his peak state, who knew if the next disaster would arrive before that could happen? The Empire's treasury is empty, we don't have that much money. Could Sacred Cult Master give a discount? Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor probed. Qin Mu calculated it and said, after Roland's Golden Palace is conquered, Imperial Preceptor shall allow me to choose 100 treasures, then I'll pay the salaries of the cult followers myself. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor still wanted to bargain when Qin Mu smiled. Heavenly King, I didn't ask for my own salary. It's not a small price to invite the number 2 in heavenly works in the world to undertake this. What's more, I'm still the Heavenly Saint Cult Master. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor sighed. I shouldn't have agreed to be the Heavenly King of Heavenly Saint cult. Now my hands are tied and I can't even bargain. I need to report this to the Emperor and ask him to make a decision. Over the years, Eternal Peace Empire has annexed many countries and eradicated numerous sects, so there are some divine gold and divine materials in the Empire's treasury. We just need the Emperor to nod his head. Wait for a dozen days, and the Emperor's decree will come. Qin Mu turned around to help forge Heaven's rings. He wasn't too worried about the divine gold or divine materials since he didn't find them valuable as he had many of them when he was refining his sword pellet. They had come from the treasury of Heavenly Devil cult, while he had transferred all kinds of cult legacy treasures there in return. He, Ministry of Works, and the scholars of Imperial College forged Heaven's rings together, their speed extremely fast. Speed was a crucial asset in war, and even if they only forged Heaven's rings, they still needed over 17,000 of them, which turned it into a huge project. Once the Heaven's rings were connected to the formation markings, they could concentrate the true origin light in the center of the barrel, not allowing it to come into contact with the walls. This gathered true origin light would become as thick as a bowl's opening, so the barrel wouldn't heat up, eliminating the weariness of the black gold and thermal decay. The cannon beam of true origin cannon was originally as thick as a water barrel, but now it had become as thick as a bowl's opening. The attack surface might have become smaller, but the range was drastically increased. The shooters could also fire them as long as they liked, without worrying that the cannon would explode. This turned the flying ships into battleships. Actually, Heaven's Eyes wasn't the greatest improvement that could be done to true origin cannon. Among 9 Heaven's Eyes awakening skill, Heaven's Eyes was the most basic pupil skill. The other 8 kinds of pupil skills were much stronger. The strongest was the 9th heaven, Fire Heaven's Eyes. However, the formation of Heaven's Eyes was the simplest and the easiest to learn. It was easiest to make and required the least amount of materials, so Qin Mu chose this skill to impart to everyone. If it was Fire Heaven's Eyes, even Qin Mu would need 10 to 15 days to refine one ring. The formation markings of Fire Heaven's ring were too complicated, and if he used them, the true origin light might be concentrated into a beam of light that was even finer than a needle, and the range would once again be drastically increased. However, activating such a true origin cannon would require an extremely large amount of energy, one that even the Empire's treasury might not be able to handle. If Fire Heaven's rings could be forged to concentrate light into a thread, there would be no stronghold it couldn't overcome. Even an army with 10,000 men and horses wouldn't be able to break through if it was used to guard a sacred ground. Qin Mu calculated how much would such a guarding formation cost and was instantly disappointed. Heavenly Saint cult would be able to forge it, but they wouldn't be able to use it. Activating the formation and maintaining it required too many medicinal stones. His thoughts started wandering again. Even though Fire Heaven's Eyes wasn't as crazily strong as Sunshot Divine Eyes, Blind's 9 Heaven's Eyes awakening skill and his divine eyes contained the formation markings of 9 layers of heavens, which was equivalent to the power of 9 layers of heaven accumulating together. Now that was terrifying. When Grandpa Blind's eyes were still around, wouldn't everyone have just died from one look? Qin Mu couldn't help becoming fascinated. Blind was short and was always chattering away while propping himself up by his bamboo cane to show off his literary excellence. It was hard to imagine how terrifying his gaze would have been when his eyes were still around. Then again, what kind of person could have dug out Blind's divine eyes? Since the spear god back then had such terrifying divine eyes, who was the one that was able to take his eyes and reduce such a godly existence to that kind of state? Dao sect? Great Thunderclap Monastery? Li Qianxing? Or is it Little Jade Capital? Qin Mu wondered about it when he suddenly remembered the youth called Xu Shenghua, which stirred his heart. Could it be that place called High Heavens from which Xu Shenghua came? Blind was known as Spear God, but his strength lay in his divine eyes. But they were dug out. Butcher was known as Heaven Knife and had once slaughtered his way up to the sky. Legend said that a god had appeared and severed him from the waist. Village Chief was known as Sword God, but his limbs had been severed by a sword. Were any of these related? Cripple was the thief god, and his leg had been chopped off by Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor when he went to steal from the Imperial Palace, so it was different from Blind, Butcher, and the rest. Mute's tongue was cut off, but without Mute saying anything, no one knew the story behind it. Apothecary's face was sliced off by himself, parting over the dispute of love. Deaf's ears had been cut off by himself as he hated himself for not using them to pay attention to outside matters. Granny Sai's heart devil was Li Qianxing. They were master and disciple fighting over a divine beauty. Old Ma's arm had been severed by himself as a compensation for his master's kindness. All these were not related. Only Butcher and Village Chief's disability had similar reasons. A god. Meanwhile, the person who dug out Blind's eyes was unknown. Where could Grandpa Blind's eyes be? Qin Mu fell into a daze, but then shook his head to throw this matter to the back of his mind. He thought to himself, according to the theory of true origin canon, I can make use of 9 Heavens Eyes awakening technique to create a pupil divine art. Grandpa Blind only taught me pupil skills, without teaching me divine arts, but I can create one myself. When I succeed in cultivating my divine eyes, I would like to see who will come to dig out my eyes. He immediately put what he thought into action and executed Overlord Body 3 Elixir technique. Mobilizing the 7 writings of creation in great educational heavenly devil scriptures, he utilized Human King creation technique and Earth Eon creation technique. Instantly, fire energy from his vital chi started to gather in his eyes. Layers of formations gathered in his pupils, and cyan heaven's eyes appeared. When he executed the technique, 2 beams instantly shot out. Qin Mu's eyes blazed with fire, and the light became more and more intense. His gaze focused on the cannon battery in front of him, slicing it into 3 parts. Everyone on the ship looked over, and Qin Mu immediately retracted his gaze, dispersing the formation in his eyes. With a smile, he said, "Don't panic, I just felt that this battery was useless, so I decided to reforge it." The astonishment on everyone's face didn't fade away, while Qin Mu's heart pounded violently as his hands formed into tight fists. Divine eyes are truly powerful, whoever I look at will die. Cripple and Village Chief sat at the gate of the City Lord's manor, basking in the sun. When they saw the 2 beams, Cripple couldn't help shaking his head. Nua, this rascal, playing around again. He's totally not afraid of spoiling his eyes with the heat. Blind is also too big-hearted to even teach him such a dangerous thing. Village Chief beamed at him while saying, "You can see how strong Blind's divine eyes were by looking at Qin Mu. The person who dug his eyes out is no ordinary person. With someone able to do this around, you should be careful as well, maybe someone will take a liking to your legs." Cripple trembled, then looked over while asking in a low voice, "What you mean is that someone is trying to gather all the things that had reached the realm of God? What does he want all of them for? To piece together a god?" Village Chief sighed and said, "There are more people from my generation than just me. You may meet someone like this." Cripple shrunk his head back. "I'm timid, so don't scare me, can't I just run away?" Village Chief looked at Qin Mu, who was on the ship, and said in a low voice, "I wish I could cut down the obstacles for Mua to grow peacefully, however, I don't know if I'll live that long. Mua is still too innocent. If only he could be a little more crafty." In Roland Golden Palace, strong corporeal bodies sat in the shrines around Pangong-so, each of them executing shaman spell divine arts to continuously bombard an ancient book in the middle. They were trying to undo its seal. This book was, of course, one of those that he had scavenged from Qin Hanzhen's treasure ship. Boom! A huge explosion rang out, and the seal on the book was finally broken. Pangong-so couldn't hide the excitement in his heart and hurried over to flip open the ancient book. But his face turned black the moment he read the first few lines, and he threw the ancient book to the ground. Great educational heavenly devil scriptures again. Is this god from Carefree Village part of Heavenly Devil cult? Beside him, books were strewn all over the floor. There was only one that hadn't yet been opened. Pangong-so composed himself and used up all his energy to mobilize his previous bodies to open up the final scripture. When he flipped open the first page, golden light burst forth and lighted up the entire sacred hall. Pangong-so became wild with joy. What technique is this? That book was a golden one that was extremely difficult to destroy. There weren't many words on it, and the bits and pieces of them were all very short. For example, there were words like a magpie bridge, mysterious guide, God crossing, whose meanings were unknown. Pan Gongso's gaze landed on the first page, and on the picture there was splendid celestial heaven, which was a dazzling sight. What had lighted up the entire hall with golden light were the rays that came from that picture. Even though it was a painting, it was way too realistic. It seemed like the celestial heavens in the book was real. In front of it was a broken bridge, and whose end stood a godlike figure. Pan Gongso was slightly stunned. This sight looked a little familiar. He then looked at the surroundings in the picture and noticed a sun and moon as well as the 5 elements. This is divine bridge, divine treasure. That figure of a god should be the primordial spirit. What's this picture doing in the golden book? Isn't the divine bridge of Carefree Village complete? Then why is it broken in this picture? The others' pages had different pictures which portrayed different circulation paths, the circulation method of vital chi in the spirit embryo, how to control the 5 chi of 5 elements divine treasure, how to determine 6 directions to stabilize the heaven and earth, how to link the 7 stars, how to combine the soul and vital chi as one to strengthen the primordial spirit, how to open up life and death to see Yudu. When it came to the 8 diagram, it was divine bridge, divine treasure again. Pan Gongso's heart suddenly pounded violently a few times. He saw the first 7 pictures as a bed cover that was spread out for the vital chi in the 8th picture, so there would be a fantastic transformation at the time. Most of the vital chi seemed to have been drawn over by an indescribable force. It looked like magpies were laying out the way forward from the broken bridge. Magpie bridge. Pan Gongso's heart throbbed. This was the cultivation method of Magpie Bridge which could reconnect the broken bridge. He hurriedly flipped open the next page and saw that the primordial spirit there had come to the end of Magpie Bridge. However, there was still an impassable distance to the celestial heavens in front of it. At this moment, the circulation path of vital chi had a miraculous transformation and gained an indescribable feeling of intersecting with the celestial heavens. It was drawn in its direction, and a bridge was slowly growing out from there. Secrets of Mysterious Guide. Pan Gongso's eyes sparkled from excitement, but he immediately stabilized his heart. He then turned the next page while suppressing his urge to cheer. The methods recorded in the Golden Book were simply too complicated. If it was him, he wouldn't be able to come up with even the first step for such a complicated and intricate technique to reconnect the divine bridge. Yet the people of Carefree Village could actually create it, which was simply unimaginable. This is a golden book that surpasses the knowledge I accumulated throughout all of my lives. So what if the Qin brat stole a portion of my previous wealth? With this golden book, I will be able to break through divine bridge realm to become a god. Pan Gongso rose, feeling giddy. He knew he was too excited, which resulted in his Tao heart getting bombarded. Even though he was an old monster which had lived for over 10,000 years, blood still rushed to his head from happiness, making it hard for his Tao heart to calm down. As long as I cultivate to divine bridge realm and awaken divine bridge divine treasure, I'll be able to become a god. I have to quickly raise my cultivation. At that moment, Grand Shaman of Roland's Golden Palace came to report. Grandmaster, the front lines are being hard-pressed. Khan Rwandi sent word that Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor has reached the front lines and he has also called over the Heavenly Devil Cult Master. He showed off his sword skill divine art, which resulted in the sword lights that were like sea, controlling the entire battlefield of several hundred miles in radius. Astonished, Pan Gongso broke into a laughing fit. Is Rwandi crazy? Heavenly Devil Cult Master is the Qin brat, so where would he get such a great ability? Controlling several hundred miles with sword lights? Even in my previous lifetimes, I didn't have that kind of skill. I doubt that even Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor would be able to do that, and he's even injured now. Nonsense, pure nonsense. Khan Rwandi's intention is to invite Grandmaster to mobilize the experts of the Golden Palace to assist, Grand Shaman said. Pan Gongso's was in quite a good mood, so he smiled. Rwandi, that brat is a little too timid. I have already sent orders to the entire prairie. There were 100 tribes on the prairie and 100 Khans to support him. The abilities and cultivations of these Khans are all not weak. In addition, Wolf's Store country is attacking Winter Iron Pass in the north to disperse the army of Eternal Peace, yet he actually still wants to borrow the power of our Roland's Golden Palace. Grand Shaman immediately said, Grandmaster, how do we reply to Khan Rwandi? The Sea of Sword light didn't seem to be fake. Pan Gongso rose and walked to and fro while mumbling, Sea of Sword light, Sea of Sword light. I've seen this kind of sword skill before. Hee, looks like that one has arrived. Old Human Emperor can't even sit still before he dies. Grand Shaman shuddered. Old Human Emperor? Since Old Human Emperor made an appearance, things will be much easier. Pan Gongso smiled. This is a chance for our Roland's Golden Palace to show our face. Go to the Divine Mountain in West Earth and invite the people of High Heavens with incenses. Tell them that their Old Human Emperor has walked out of great ruins. In the meantime, I shall bring the experts of Roland's Golden Palace to assist them at the border station. Grand Shaman's expression changed drastically as he cried out, Think thrice, Grandmaster. Old Human Emperor has arrived and his sword skills have reached perfection. I'm afraid our Roland's Golden Palace. Our Roland's Golden Palace is a sacred ground, so how can we be scared of this old fart? Now that Imperial Preceptor and Emperor Yangfeng are both useless, Dao Master and Rulai are old, Dao Sect and Great Thunderclap Monastery don't have anyone in charge anymore. That Qin brat who is the cult master of Heavenly Devil cult is still small and serves no purpose, so Eternal Peace deserves to be eradicated, Pan Gongso said leisurely. Grand Shaman was slightly stunned. He then immediately said, Grandmaster, Eternal Peace Empire can't be underestimated. Pan Gongso hid the golden book in his clothes and walked over with a smile. You're overestimating them. Our Roland's Golden Palace is not to be trifled with, since we have over a dozen experts of the cult master level. In addition, there are also over 100 Khans in the prairie, so we don't need to be afraid of Eternal Peace. Actually, now that Old Human Emperor appeared, the fate of Eternal Peace Empire is already determined. High Heavens will definitely be very willing to help us eradicate Eternal Peace. Old Human Emperor has caused a huge problem this time. Laughing, Pan Gongso walked out of the sacred hall. After summoning all the strong practitioners in the Golden Palace that was on Celestial Being Realm, Life and Death Realm as well as Divine Bridge Realm, he left for the border station. Grand Shaman didn't dare to hesitate. He immediately rushed toward West Earth. Pan Gongso brought all experts that had cultivated a primordial spirit. They boarded a treasure ship while some of the shaman kings on Celestial Being Realm grew bird wings to drag the treasured ship through the sky. The speed at which they moved was as fast as lightning. Even so, they still took almost 6 days to reach the border station. Behind it, there were cows and goats roaming over the mountains while the Khans from all over the prairie brought their troops to kill the livestock for meat. Eternal Peace Empire was weakened by the principle of taking their own lives when they were weak, so Pan Gongso personally ordered the entire prairie to unify. With Khan Rwandi as the leader, they began an invasion. At the same time, they allied with Wolf's Store country, which would attack from the north. When they conquered Eternal Peace, they agreed to split the lands equally. With the prairie army in a deadlock, more and more troops came to reinforce it. Plenty of experts showed up, but Qingmen Pass was also being reinforced by people hurrying over to the battlefield. This caused the situation to stay in the deadlock. When Qin Mu and the rest arrived, it was the crucial moment for the fight over Duktung Zone. However, village chief had quelled the battle with the sword of founding Emperor Sea of Blood. When Khan Rwandi heard that Pan Gongso was coming with the strong practitioners of Roland's Golden Palace, he immediately led most of the Khans of the prairie to welcome him. Even though Pan Gongso was his son in name, his true identity was that of the Grandmaster. Even though this made him sad, he was also delighted. After Pan Gongso had taken over the body, the attitude of Roland's Golden Palace in regards to him had changed for the better. Everyone fully supported him to become the overlord of the prairie. We pay our respects to Grandmaster. Khan Rwandi shouted out while leading all the Khans. Pan Gongso immediately came forward to personally help him up with a smile. You're my father in this generation, so there's no need to be too formal. For that sea of sword lights that you mentioned, I've already got an idea about who caused it. I've come this time to put you at ease. While maintaining the bowing posture, Khan Randi shuddered at the memory of the sword lights that had covered the sky and earth like a vast sea. Heavenly Devil Cult Master's abilities are extraordinary and his sword skills are invincible. Him being in Qingmen Pass is making it hard for the elites of our prairie to make a move. Grandmaster. Heavenly Devil Cult Master. Pan Gong So laughed aloud and stamped his feet, only then did he manage to stifle his mirth. Heavenly Devil Cult Master is merely a 16-year-old brat. His abilities are very superficial, so how is he worth you attaching importance to him? Don't worry about him, since he's on the opposite side, let me meet him and put you be at ease. Khan Randi let out a sigh of relief. If we could get the help of Grandmaster and the Shaman Kings, we would definitely win a victory in raising the flag and conquering Middle-earth. Pan Gong So led everyone into the pass, and the city gate in front of him opened up to allow them out of the impregnable pass and toward Duck Tongue Zone. Once they were between the two impregnable passes, Pan Gong So ordered someone to shout, "Heavenly Devil Cult Master Qin Mu, Grandmaster has come forth to talk with you. Do you dare to come out of the city?" The person who had shouted out was a Shaman King of the Cult Master level. His voice resounded throughout the whole Qingmen Pass. Qin Mu was forging heaven's rings with everyone, so he was caught off guard by the words. Pan Gong So that rogue still dares to appear? Once I kill him, his shaman spell of paying respect to the soul will disappear. It's a pity Grandpa Butcher is not here or he would be more than willing to kill him. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor had already come to Qin Mu's side and beside him was Cripple and Village Chief as well as numerous generals of Eternal Peace Empire's army. Qin Mu took out his painting of Pan Gong So paying respect to the soul, revealing the vividly drawn devil. I've never seen it before. Village Chief shook his head. Cripple also shook his head, followed by the generals of the army. This devil is weird, we have never seen its kind before. Qin Mu looked at Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor who pondered for a bit before saying, "When I and my wife were invited to Little Jade Capital, I seem to have seen a similar sculpture, however, I didn't ask about it." While they talked, shouts continued to ring outside. Qin Mu put away the painting and rose with a smile. "If we kill Pan Gong So, there will be no need to go to Little Jade Capital. Grandpa Village Chief, come with me to get rid of him without a word." Village Chief shook his head. "I'm the human emperor, so I can't meddle with the struggles of the mortal world, otherwise, no one would listen to the words of the human emperor. Then what's the use of that human emperor's seal?" Qin Mu hated the human emperor's seal so much that he wanted to throw it away. This thing was absolutely useless and yet still managed to have so many restrictions. However, if he were to throw it away, Village Chief would be hurt. In addition, he hadn't yet been able to defeat Village Chief on the same realm, so he could only abide by his promise and keep it. Pan Gong So, that beast, actually dared to steal the stuff of my Qin family and now even comes to show off in front of me. Isn't he dancing on the graves of my ancestors by doing this? Qin Mu was filled with anger and said ruthlessly, "Grandpa Cripple, come with me. Let's steal until he becomes bankrupt." Cripple's eyes lit up and he chuckled. "Let us go and see who is the thief god with sacred hands." Cripple and Qin Mu walked out of Qingmen Pass, and many generals in the pass frowned. The engineer immediately consulted Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor who said while shaking his head, "There's no need to help them. With that cripple around, no one will be able to kill Cult Master Qin." Cripple? Everyone looked at Cripple only to see this old man having all four limbs and walking quickly. How was he crippled? His heart is crippled. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's face was slightly unpleasant. His morality and conduct are crippled, his body improper, and his shadow lame, with deformed intentions. Forget about him. Shan Yushin, how many heaven's rings has Ministry of Works and Imperial College forged? 14,000. Shan Yushin said. They are already installed on the True Origin cannons. Just one more day, and we can finish making the remaining few thousand. When that time comes, we will be able to attack the enemy encampment. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor looked at the impregnable pass in front of them and said indifferently, "There's no need for one more day. Pass down orders to all the troops for them to get ready at once, form a formation with the flying ships, and we shall push forward. General Bien, Grand Marshal, General who supports the state, General of White Horse, Pillars of State, Duke Wei, General of Pillars of States, General who crowns the army, General of Cherishing Transformation. He pointed out the names one by one, and numerous generals of Eternal Peace Empire walked out of the ranks to wait for their orders. After being through the rebellion of the previous Crown Prince Ling Yuxia, the officials under him were all cleared out, but Eternal Peace Empire was a place of talents after all. The Emperor selected numerous lower officials for promotion, so there was no case of a temporary deficit in manpower. Mobilize the army behind the pass so it stays behind the flying ships. They will pave the way while the army behind will clean up the rest. Meanwhile, all of you shall focus on the experts of Divine Bridge and Life and Death Realm, killing them when you get the chance. All the generals' hearts became stern, and Duke Wei asked, Imperial Preceptor, Cult Master Qin is still on the front lines. If we attack now, I'm afraid the other side would lay their hands on him. Imperial Preceptor revealed a smile. The moment he retreats is the moment we attack, but there's no need to worry about his safety. With that cripple around, there aren't many people in this world that could harm him. Who will be the one dispatching the flying ships? Bien Jinyun asked. The flying ships were originally scattered throughout all the army and were commanded by various generals they served to at the time. But once Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor changed the strategy to have the flying ships pave the way, they needed to set up another army with strong practitioners proficient in offense to dispatch the ships. Only then could they deal with the ever-changing situation on the battlefield instantly. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's gaze flickered as he said solemnly, summon all the high-ranking military officers over. And also, get all the directorates of Imperial College as well. After a moment, several hundred high-ranking military officers and numerous directorates hurried to his side. We have a total of 245 flying ships, which is equivalent to 245 flying swords. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor swept his gaze over all of them and said solemnly, those who are proficient in sword skills and can control 245 swords at the same time, please step forward. Over 50 people from the high-ranking military officers and directorates did so. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's vital chi burst forth and transformed into flying swords that surrounded his body. Attack me. The one who can break through my sword formation and stab my body shall become the new army's commander-in-chief. The 50 strong practitioners heard what he said and all executed their sword skills to attack. In an instant, countless sword lights swirled around rapidly, resulting in incomparably loud clanking sounds. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor stood motionlessly, controlling the countless sword lights with his mind, blocking the attacks of the 50 high-ranking military officers and directorates. Suddenly, a general got hit in the chest by Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's sword light, but it didn't injure him. That general immediately fell back. After a moment, people began to continuously fall back until only 10 or so sword skill experts were still attacking. Duke Wei, Bien Jinyun, and the rest exclaimed in their hearts when they saw this sight. The remaining people were all outstanding existences in regards to sword skills, and their attainments in that field were at the standard of a professional. The only thing they lacked was cultivation. It was truly gratifying for Eternal Peace Empire to have so many talents. After some more time, the 10 or so people were finally left with 3 that were still attacking Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor. Suddenly, a sword sun burst forth, its red light that glowed like a fire lighting up all the surroundings. A sword light then stabbed out from the red sun and penetrated through Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor's sword skill defense, making a small hole at the corner of his clothes. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor raised his hand and had the 3 of them stop. He looked toward the man that had stabbed his clothes and asked, the Directorate of Hall of Hidden Light? The one who had stabbed the corner of his clothes was none other than Sword Hall Master. He then bowed and said, Hall of Hidden Light, Jian Sancho. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor nodded and looked at the other general who had executed the Red Sun. The Sunset Sword skill he had used earlier had let Sword Hall Master succeed. General of Guide Commander Yu Yuan Chuyun. Yu Yuan Chuyun bowed and greeted. Imperial Preceptor. Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor revealed a smile. Jian Sanchen, you are the new commander-in-chief. Yu Yuan Chuyun, you are the new assistant commander-in-chief. I shall give you an hour to familiarize yourselves with the names of the ships and their military officers. Memorize all of them. Remember, when you command the ships, don't think of them as ships, but as your flying swords. Sword Hall Master's eyes sparkled, and he asked solemnly, "What does Imperial Preceptor want us to do?" Eternal Peace Imperial Preceptor pointed at the majestic and impregnable pass at the opposite side and said, "Raise the Hilan Pass to the ground." Sword Hall Master's sturdy body trembled, and he turned his head to look at the impregnable pass with heroism burning in his chest. In the meantime, Qin Mu and Cripple had already reached Ducktongue Zone. "Qin Gongso, I trust you have been well since we last met," Qin Mu said loudly while smiling. Pan Gongso smiled and looked left and right. "Khan Rwandi, this is Heavenly Devil Cult Master. He isn't someone who can execute that sea of sword light, right?" Behind him, Khan Rwandi's lightning-fast eyes scanned Qin Mu, and he said solemnly, "It's this youth." When he came to the battlefield, that terrifying sword skill burst forth and made everyone hold their breaths. Qin Mu looked at Pan Gongso's back, slightly stunned. Behind him were numerous Khans and Shaman kings of Roland's Golden Palace. However, one of them was extremely eye-catching. His figure towered over all others since he was much taller even than Sword Hall Master and Apothecary. Even though it was the end of summer, he was still wearing a thick raccoon skin with a golden knife and quiver on his waist. After feeling his invasive gaze, Qin Mu could immediately guess the origin of this person. The mighty Lord of the Prairie, Khan Rwandi. Back when Grand Shaman had personally granted the title of Khan to this person, Khan Rwandi became the #1 divine archer in the world. His tribe was also proficient in horseback archery, so from that day onwards, Khan Rwandi rose in power. His martial power was definitely near the top, and he wasn't just a divine archer. When Qin Mu and Chancellor Ba Shan had met the Pan Gongso who hadn't yet been taken over, his fist skills had made both Qin Mu and Chancellor Ba Shan take notice of him. Those skills had originated from Khan Rwandi, which showed that his battle power was not limited to the bow and arrow. People frequently compared Khan Rwandi and Emperor Yangfeng. Both of them were mighty leaders that had pushed ahead with bold and decisive reforms. Yet Khan Rwandi was more like an imitator, learning from Emperor Yanfeng's actions and reforming the messy situation on the prairie where all the tribes ruled themselves. He annexed them and eradicated all big and small shaman sects. All the experts were then taken in by him to join his army. If it was not for Roland's Golden Palace purposely obstructing him, he would have long united the prairie. This video will end here.